Well, good afternoon, and thanks for being with us here today. I'm Representative Dave Pinto, the DFL lead on the Workforce, Labor, and Economic Development Committee. Minnesotans and their families have been waiting for years for the benefits of paid family and medical leave. Waiting another year is not an option. We're already beginning to see that Donald Trump's disastrous economic policies are harming household and state budgets alike. In attempting to delay our state's paid leave law from taking effect, Republicans are choosing to stand with corporations and the ultra-wealthy over hardworking Minnesotans who are just trying to catch a break. House DFLers are fighting for an economy where everyone can get ahead, and that's why we won't let Minnesota Republicans delay or repeal important policies like paid family and medical leave that give hardworking people more economic security. And I say delay or repeal because we know that it's a repeal that Republicans are really after. They don't just want to push back the start date for this program, they want to scrap it altogether. At every turn for years and years, our Republican colleagues in the legislature have tried to stop this law from passing, and even after it passed, they're still trying to stop it from taking effect. They've already introduced legislation, I think 2 different bills, in fact, to repeal our paid leave law entirely. Instead of bringing up yet another bill that won't become law, Republicans should work with Democrats to make life more affordable for Minnesotans. And I'll turn things to Representative Frazier.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair. Representative Cedric Frazier, District 43A, Cities of Crystal and New Hope. So paid family medical leave, it's not a luxury. It's necessary. It ensures that no worker is forced to choose between their livelihood and caring for a loved one. Yet the GOP is trying to gut Minnesota's paid leave law before it even takes effect on January 1st, 2026. This is a direct assault on workers' rights, threatening their ability to take time off for a serious health condition, the birth or adoption of a child, or to take care of an ill family member without plunging into financial ruin. Minnesota families have fought for over a decade for this basic protection. Time and again, they've shared their stories, demanding action. And feels like just last week, they stood in this very room with a resounding message: paid leave can't wait. Yet, Republicans continue to ignore them, silencing their voices of working people in favor of corporate interests that put profits above human dignity. Let's be clear. Minnesotans don't care about corporate bottom lines. They care about feeding their families. They care about keeping a roof over their heads. They care about taking care of themselves and their loved ones without fear of losing their paycheck. Small businesses across Minnesota have made it clear they need a statewide paid leave system to attract and retain talent. Paid leave isn't just about workers, it's about keeping small businesses competitive. Employee turnover costs them 20 to 30% of annual salaries, but paid leave cuts that turnover in half, saving businesses money and ensuring they can invest in their workers, not just in endless hiring and retraining processes. A workforce with job security and financial stability means stronger local economies, thriving businesses, in a more prosperous Minnesota. And I know all Minnesotans want to get behind that. The choice is simple. Do we stand with Minnesotan families, or do we bow to corporate greed? Do we protect the hardworking people who drive our economy, or do we let an oligarchy dictate their futures? Paid family and medical leave is necessary, and it's needed now. And our DFLers and my colleagues, we will not back down from this. Thank you, and I will turn it over to Representative Wong.
Thank you so much. Paid family and medical leave is about saying to Minnesotans, if you are sick, you deserve the time for care. If you are having a family member who is going through end of life, you deserve time for care. If you're welcoming a newborn into your home, you deserve time for care. We know that this bill is not about delay. This bill is about killing the paid family medical leave program. And the only reason that bill is not before us is because paid family medical leave is overwhelmingly popular. We know that all Minnesotans want this time to care, as folks around the world and every other developed country have. I met with a constituent this morning who said, boy, I really hope that you're able to get this in place for next year, because guess what? I'm pregnant and I'm planning on taking paid leave next year. People are already making plans around having this bill go into law, go into effect on January 1st of next year, and we can't stop that right now. We need to make sure that folks who've been waiting for years, for a decade since this bill was first introduced in the Minnesota legislature, have access to take that time that they need with their loved ones. And with that, I'll turn it over to Speaker Meredith Hortman.
Thank you. Well, good afternoon. Minnesota workers and their families should have the security of paid leave to care for themselves and their loved ones without losing a paycheck. They shouldn't have to worry about whether they're going to be paid at the time when they're worrying about a new baby, an aging parent, or the need to focus on recovery for their own serious illness or injury. Every industrialized country in the world has figured out how to provide paid family medical leave. In one of the wealthiest states and the wealthiest country in the world, we are ready. We've seen Republicans in Washington, D.C. and Minnesota alike working to preserve a broken system where big corporations and the billionaires have rigged the economy to benefit themselves while making life harder for everyday Minnesotans. Democrats are working to ensure that life is a little bit easier and a little bit more affordable for middle-class families and to ensure that everyone has the opportunity to enter the middle class. Taking care of our families or ourselves should not come second to our jobs. We will continue to stand against any attempts to delay or repeal paid family medical leave, and we are happy to take questions if you have any.
What about the claim that this is really, even though there's a two-tier system for smaller businesses, that this is really going to hit small businesses?
I just want to say something briefly and then turn it over to the expert. But the system is designed to treat different size employers differently. And that's already been taken into account. If last year the Republicans would have joined us in working on this bill instead of being so obstructionist all the time, they might understand better how it works. And Representative Frazier can explain the rate system to you.
So, Esme, thank you for the question. And to that question, oftentimes we've heard our Republican colleagues say this is a one-size-fits-all, but particularly for small businesses, we've allowed for rate cuts for the premium, so they'll pay less of a premium for that. We have grants in place for small business to help them with filling those spots or helping with retraining when individuals are out. So there's absolutely resources there geared specifically towards small businesses. It's not a one-size-fits-all. We were very thoughtful when we put this together. We listened to small businesses, we listened to other advocates, and we're trying to make sure that we have the best program in place here that can be a model for other states when they put it in place as well.
I'm going to add just a little bit more detail to that. So the rate is coming out at 0.88. And an employer has to pay up to 50% of that, or
that's right,
up to 50%. For a small employer, they have to pay half the rate. It's 0.44, which means they can pay as little as 0.22. So we have this very different system that can adjust for different size employers so that different employers who can afford different premiums pay different premiums.
Is that the lowest rate, the 0.44? I thought it was 0.66 something.
No, my understanding is the rate for the general rate is 0.88. For small employers, they're down at 0.44.
That's correct. So the general rate is 0.88. The law requires for at a minimum that is split. The employer pays 50%, the employees pay the other 50%. And then we have the discounts for others, for smaller businesses, to where it can be even less than that, which is what Speaker Meredith just cited.
So the lowest is 0.44, which is half.
That's half, but if you were a smaller business and you meet that threshold, then you can get down to actually 0.22.
And Dean could give you
yeah,
those numbers. And what I am not willing to talk about here, because I'll get the numbers wrong, is what size employers. There's both, I think, a number of employee issue and then a relative income, net revenues compared to other businesses.
Wage, I think.
Right.
yeah.
There is a cap, though, it can go a little bit higher.
The cap is for the premium, and that cap is 1.2%. That's the cap. It can't go above that.
Is there any chance it'll go up again before 26?
No.
So the rate hasn't been set?
That's correct.
For now.
One of the things I think was very critical and smart, and this is a bipartisan agreement, is that we created a process where we have to have these actuary studies done every year. And so based on those actuary studies, it will look at the program as a whole to determine what the premiums are. And based on the actuary studies that we currently have now, there is no projection that we're going to get close to that 1.2% in the near future.
This plan is more generous than a lot of private employers' plans in terms of the leave. What happens to the individual who's with a private employer right now? Can they opt into this, or does the whole company they work for opt out?
The whole company will be into the program unless, and this is another where it's not a one-size-fits-all. There is a process. If you have a program that's just as generous or even more generous, you can submit for an exemption and where your organization would not be in the program at all.
What if your program is less generous? Because I think a lot of people are going to look at this and say, wow, that's better than what I have.
If your program is less generous, you can't opt out. So everybody is, there's no exemptions there are some minor exemptions for like seasonal workers, but for corporations, there's no exemption. But if you want to offer something more generous, you can absolutely apply for an exemption.
Are corporations required to opt in?
Yes,
They are required.
that's correct.
And if I could, Esme, too, just on your small business question, I have small businesses in my district, including Sarah Piepenberg from Vinaigrette, who's testified at the Capitol quite a bit, who want this policy because of this competitive disadvantage that they're at compared to large employers when they have small, she's a 5-person shop. When she has somebody go out, which she did have, then she used her personal capital to try to help cover that person's medical leave, and it put their company in a really tough spot. Now she's able to actually retain employees with this program going into place and have benefits she wouldn't otherwise be able to offer.
If a current employer, because I think a lot of people are going to look at these stories and say that is better, certain parts of this. If somebody looks at it and says, well, the 12 weeks family leave, paid family leave is better than I have, I only have 6, does the company they work for have to ante up to that 12? Understand what I'm asking? Say it very articulately.
The way it's a state program. So when you're enrolled, and every organization is going to be enrolled in a program. Once you're enrolled in that program, this is actually run through the state, similar to our UI program. So then that the program's in place, the individual employee will actually submit that information when they're prepared to take that leave. They will submit that information to the state in order to determine whether or not they've met the requirements to qualify for the weeks off. So the individual organization doesn't have to do anything at that point. It's on the state to see whether or not they qualify. It indeed will make that determination, and then the payouts will be made. Your income, your salary replacement will be made according to that.
Is the infrastructure going to be ready? Because this is going to be,
Yes.
this is going to affect every single
Yes.
person in the state probably.
Yes, we have no indications, and we've been in constant communication with DEED. We had DEED come to testify in our workforce committee specifically to those points. There's no indication that we will not be prepared to go January 1st, 2026.
The important thing to remember about DEED is we have the most effective Department of Employment and Economic Development in the country when it comes to delivering unemployment insurance. And this is basically a copy-paste of unemployment insurance. It will function just the same way, where a tiny increment out of your paycheck will go into the fund. It'll be there if you need it. We all pay into unemployment insurance right now. Hopefully we don't need it, but our employer pays a little bit, we pay a little bit. It's there if we need it. Paid family medical leave will work the same way, and it will be administered by the same entity. During COVID, we all got the payments from the federal government faster than any other place in the country because our department is efficient and well-run, and they have this down to a science. So we feel a lot of confidence because of their performance in the UI space, that their performance in the paid family medical space will be top-notch compared to other states.
Representative Baker is looking to make some other tweaks in a different bill, creating some exemptions for folks who collective bargain their benefits, ag workers, some others. I know you've said in the past that you don't want to make any changes this year because that could slow this down. Is that still the case? Are you open to any sort of tweaks to the program?
Well, I mean, we're certainly open to conversation about anything, but I will say that this is a program the Minnesotans have been waiting for years and years, and went through many committee hearings. So I will say I am not aware of any changes that would be needed for the program. This is a program that's ready to go. And I did want to note 2 things in response to some of the questions. I believe it's the case that there are private insurance plans that will be offered as well. So if an employer says, hey, my current program is not, won't meet the standards, but I'd rather not go with the state program, then there are private insurance programs. So there's lots of different options, including options to sort of top up, to say, well, my program right now isn't quite at the state standard, so I'm gonna bump it up a little bit through a private program. So that's one, those are a lot of different options that employers have. And the other thing I wanted to note, just in response to the question about implementation, it's true that we heard in our committee that the program is ready to go. We heard this from DEED, that's all true. That hearing actually came after the delay bill was voted out of our committee on the grounds it wasn't ready to implement, and we had never heard from DEED that it wasn't ready to implement. Turns out when DEED came in, we asked lots of questions and verified that, yes, it is ready to go. So it's kind of just another sign that this is something that's being rushed through by our Republican colleagues, apparently for political purposes.
This might be the same answer from you, but Hospitality Minnesota was in here a couple hours ago. They were asking for the definition of seasonal worker to be extended to 180 days as opposed to 150. Are you open to that at all?
Yeah, so again, I mean, you know, we can have conversations, but like that is already quite, we want to make sure that Minnesota workers are protected. That is the fundamental goal of our caucus, and it should be the goal of our state. And that is, in fact, the goal of the law that was passed, right, with a majority of votes. So again, I think we're having a lot of conversations with employers, especially about misunderstandings of the law. I think that's especially where a lot of the conversations are going, is to identify when folks are not quite understanding, and so we want to make sure to walk that through. I have not seen anything that certainly that I would think would be worthy of changing, again, with all the work that's been done.
Do you have a ballpark for what percentage of Minnesotans will end up in this plan?
I do not.
I don't, we're
A
not,
lot.
a lot is what
Like
the,
almost everybody. I mean,
Sounds like,
go.
it sounds like it would be, you're talking about employers bumping up and everything like that, it sounds like it would be almost everyone, every single person in Minnesota would probably get a change as a result of this in some way.
Yeah, and I remember way back in the dark ages when my children were little, and I used to pay my nanny taxes. And I remember doing all these little tiny deductions and writing a check to the state of Minnesota for like $35 for my share of the unemployment insurance. And the idea is that when people go to work, that they should be covered by the laws that protect workers. And so the goal is to not exempt people and not to create incentives for employers to create structures to get out of providing workers with the benefits that workers deserve.
And in terms of who has access right now, there are about 80% of Minnesotans, if I'm getting my numbers right, so about 2.5 million people that don't currently have access to paid leave, and about 60% of Minnesotans that don't have access even to unpaid leave. So we're talking about a large number of Minnesotans who are now getting these protections for their very first time.
Could I ask an off-topic on those two fraud bills that are going to be also on the floor today? Any indication on how your caucus is planning?
You've been working on it.
I've been working on it. I think it's, so there is the House File 3, which actually I've not been working on, but I guess I'll just say, I think there are significant concerns you will have heard in committee, and I think that you'll hear those similar concerns on the floor about that bill. Again, I hadn't been working on it specifically. I don't know if any of my colleagues or Speaker Emerita would want to talk about that one. The other one is a whistleblower protection bill advanced by Representative Robbins, and I think there have been some good conversations about that bill. I would be hopeful that that would be a bill that could move forward. Still having conversations about it, but I think we certainly want to make sure that workers, it's about focus on state workers who want to provide information about some concerns that they've seen, want to make sure that they're protected, and that'd be a reason to be supportive of that.
I could say two things about the Nash bill. It's kind of a report on reports.
Right.
And it costs money, and we don't have a bipartisan budget resolution, and we had a no shenanigans handshake that we were going to be playing shenanigans with the budget, and so until we have a bipartisan budget resolution that comes out of Ways and Means, we shouldn't be spending money on the House floor.
Is there a possibility that Robbins' vote could get a Democratic vote?
Yeah, there's already whistleblower protection in law. As an former employment discrimination attorney, I was involved in whistleblower defense and prosecution litigation. I think that, or defense, rather, it doesn't materially change the law, right? The law is already there to protect whistleblowers. It's kind of like a belt and suspenders, but what's the harm? I don't think it's really that additive, but there's not necessarily a reason to oppose it either. You might have more to say about that.
Yeah, I think there's maybe a bit of a gap to close there. We had discussion in committee. I think we had significant concerns. It passed through two committees, and it did receive DFL opposition in those committees because of how the bill is worded. But we are having discussions with the bill author to see if we can work that out, and I would say that I'm hopeful that we'll be able to. As the Speaker Emerita said, it's pretty much covered, but arguably there's a little gap that could be filled a bit there.
Fast about the election tomorrow, it's all related to bills coming to the floor. If you win tomorrow in the special election, what types of changes would you foresee under power sharing, and then when would that member be seated officially?
Sure, the power sharing agreement we've talked about and was published in the Journal on February 6th. And what the power sharing agreement would call for is if there is a tie after the election, that the committees would be co-chaired. The current non-voting DFL member would begin voting, so there would be not only co-chairs, but also equal numbers of Democrats and Republicans. Those are the biggest things that would change. you had another question in your question.
So when would it officially?
We expect Monday, the 17th on St. Patrick's Day is likely the fastest that the Secretary of State certifies and that the individual is ready. I don't know if it's possible that the Secretary of State's processes work faster, but we're expecting Monday. Yeah.
How big of a change in tone would that be for the House this year? It seems like you've been through a series of different acts.
You know, there's no reason not to be bipartisan all the time, right? And so hopefully but we haven't seen that in these early weeks, even though we expect that we will end up tied. My hope would be that we don't spend this last week before we have the tie back engaged in meaningless partisan gotcha votes, that we start to build the foundation of working together on budget bills to ensure that we can get Minnesota's budget enacted on time. But my hope would be that to the extent some of the bipartisanship has been missing or a little light in the committee and on the floor, that it would we would find more opportunities to work together.
One other off topic, I think tomorrow is the 5-year anniversary of when the world shut down, especially here in Minnesota. Have operations in the House and the legislature generally pretty much gone back to normal, and is the only lasting legacy maybe the fact that members can participate remotely now?
It's really interesting to think about, like, what has changed since COVID, right, in our lives, and will we go back? You look at some of the transit numbers and certain transit routes that I was taking a look at where the ridership was a factor of 8 times larger pre-COVID than post-COVID. Are people going to go back to the office? At a certain point, are we going to get tired of being at home with the dog and working at our computers? To what degree will we revert to pre-COVID workplaces? I mean, I think we're in this transition period and people are still increasingly gravitating back to the office because they find there's different synergy that comes from working with your colleagues in person as opposed to online. I think it remains to be seen. But one thing we have all learned is Zoom. I didn't know Zoom existed before COVID. And when you think about the ability to have town hall meetings with your constituents, when, you know, if you happen to be a member that represents folks in Moorhead, driving home to be there for something in Moorhead on a weeknight, pretty difficult. Even if you're in a metro community and there's something going on in your district, but there's a floor session, the fact that I can hop on my Senate District DFL meetings on Zoom and still participate, that's great. But also having members be able to participate on the floor. You know, it's part of what paid family medical leave and earned safe sick time is all about. We don't want sick people in the workplace, not for them, but also not for their coworkers. You know, I think Representative Dabney and Representative Carlos Mariani used to carry these bills. When John Lesch was the original author of some of the sick leave bills, and he would say, you know, we have that sneeze guard, right, that prevents like your other patrons at the subway from sneezing on your food. But what about the people on the other side of the sneeze guard? You know, so I think what COVID taught us is that there are ways to manage when people are sick, that they can still be productive from home. You know, maybe not if they make sandwiches at Subway, but that we also don't want that in our workplaces, and we've got to make our laws fit a world where people should be able to take time off when they are sick.
Just a quick follow-up. Do you still have some legislative staff who work from home, or are they mostly here during the session?
Not that I know of.
But there's a lot of state workers that still, I think, work from home. Should they ever be called back?
Well, I think many of us have people in our families who work from home, and depending upon which part of the economy they're in, if they're tech workers or lawyers, I mean, I think that's a competitiveness issue that you'd have to talk to employers about, because I think there are employers who have considered saying, everybody back in the office, and then seeing how much talent they would lose if they put that into place, just to have that into place. You know, a very close relative of mine is on Zoom with people in Ireland and Germany and India, and so going into the office doesn't really make any sense to do the Zoom call there as opposed to from somewhere more convenient where the dog appreciates his presence.
Can you go back to the fraud bills? It sounds like you're going to vote against HF3, at least because of appropriations. Can you talk about the optics about voting against a fraud bill while the Feeding Our Future trial is ongoing?
Well, the bill Representative Nash is bringing forward asked the OLA to put out a report on other reports that she's already put out. So one of our members has described it as fighting fraud with waste. It doesn't really do anything. except for ask for another report.
And then the HF 23 is a maybe vote, or is that going to pass today?
Well, yeah, so what I'm saying is we've had really good conversations, and I'm very hopeful that it will pass. Maybe I'll leave it at that.
We got to wrap up. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
We'll be here 5 minutes.